Hey guys, did a kind of an unboxing review, but I have finished the kit as you can see. So I figured I would do kind of a general overview, what I put in the car as far as my setup goes, what I like, dislike about the build. Unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to run it yet, so don't have any data from that, but just figured I'd share, let you guys know what I liked, didn't like, etc. about the kit. So before we do that, let's start off, go over kind of the equipment that I'm using. This is a Yeah Racing 30mm fan. I just have it plugged into the receiver for power. I think it runs off 4 to 8 volts, something like that. Running a Dynamite 13.5. Found out that these are actually pretty good motors for the price. Run those a lot in some of my other stuff. Ran it in my 4-wheel drive 10 scale buggy and a bunch of other stuff. Pretty good motors. But the class I'm running is a Blinky 13.5, so that's why that's in there instead of a mod or hotter motor. I have the Orion R10.1 stock. Since I am running stock Blinkies, no reason for me to have mod type ESC if I'm not going to be able to use the features anyway. I do have a couple of R10.1s as it is, so for some reason the whole club decides, their whole track decides to run mod, I can swap it out for another ESC, so not a big deal there. Hard to see back down in here, but I have the Spectrum SR2000 receiver. Love these receivers. They're small, they're light, have a short antenna, so you don't have to worry about you know, trying to route the antenna through the car or through the body or anything like that. I just put a little bend in the antenna wire and that fixes that problem pretty easily. So think that's pretty cool. I love those things. I wouldn't necessarily run them in an 8 scale, but I've always had really good luck running them on most any 10 scale track I've ever been on, both off-road and on-road, and I've ran those cars pretty far away sometimes, so that's pretty cool. Standard MyLapse transponder, and also the brand new Spectrum 6240 servo. The 6240 is kind of a modern version of the popular 6040. They discontinued the 6040, replaced it with this. This servo has a little more torque, a little more speed, a little bit better servo overall. Also has the removable plug on it, so you can actually take and just pull the servo lead right out of the servo, and pull the servo out and leave the lead and everything routed like you have it. So pretty cool deal. I really like that. Servos seem to work well. The only thing you have to be careful with is sometimes the plug gets in the way. It is a little larger than most standard servos, so if you have a tight application like some of the off-road buggies, I know my B5M from Associated that servo won't fit, but good servo overall. I am running the X-Ray servo saver. I normally don't, but since this is a servo saver from a new company, I figured I would give it a shot. Normally I don't like the way the steering response is. Normally you lose a little steering, a little turn in, whatnot, but I've got an aluminum arm, so we'll go to the track, we'll run it, see how it does, and if I don't like it, I'll swap it out. So anyway, running the Thunder Power Velocity Series 70C 6000 milliamp pack. I've always run Thunder Power in my airplanes, my other cars. I've actually got a couple of the shorty packs that Thunder Power offers over here. That's what I run in my off-road car. Always good packs, really like them. A lot of people complain that they puff and stuff. I haven't had those issues, but good battery. So anyway, on to the pros, cons, etc., etc. of the kit. I will say the complaints or problems, cons, whatever you want to call them, that I list here aren't necessarily very big issues in my opinion. They are problems. It would be nice to see things like this fixed, corrected, better, whatever. But not the end of the world. The car is a very good car, so please don't take this the wrong way. I'm not trying to rip on X-Ray or anything like that. The car is a very, very solid car. So anyway, general stuff. I had a few like screws that had some crap in the threads or weren't threaded right or something, so I had to swap those out. Luckily I had screws on hand, so that wasn't a big deal, but be nice to have all the screws work, thread into the materials properly. I double checked with some other screws that I have, and it actually wasn't the aluminum bulkheads or whatever that were causing the issue. It was the couple screws that I had themselves. So anyway, like I said, not the end of the world, but whatever. Next thing that I complain about, or I have an issue with, is the inclusion of the ARS suspension system in the kit. For those of you who aren't aware of the ARS suspension system, basically what it is you run front arms, 0-degree C-hubs, and spindles on the rear of the car, and you run 2 links with 2 fixed position links and ball studs on the rear end. And basically essentially what this allows you to do is change bump steer on the rear. So you can change how the car changes toe in, toe out as the suspension compresses, which is a pretty cool deal. It's interesting. You can kind of fine tune if you want more pivot around mid corner or want to take some out of mid corner, or whatever you want to do. It's pretty cool. That said, for 90% of us club guys, it's probably going to be worse than the standard suspension, because most of us are running on parking lot tracks or kind of rougher tracks, not running on these smooth tracks like a lot of the top pros and things are at the world championships and whatnot. So the rear regular suspension is probably going to work better. That obviously the ARS, the inclusion of that ARS system does cost money. So I personally would have rather seen that system be an option part and not included in the kit, and the kit price brought down. Really, that's probably one of my biggest complaints with this car is the price. Would like to see the price come down a little bit. The ARS suspension being an option instead of included in the kit would be one way to do that. I definitely plan on trying it, but my kind of gut tells me that I'm not going to end up using it, and it would have been nice to not have to pay for it if I don't necessarily want it. The only reason that I'm trying it is because it was included. If it wasn't included, I probably wouldn't have bought it in the first place. So there's some guys out there who will want to play with that. That's cool, that's fine, but those guys probably wouldn't end up buying it anyway, in my opinion. Anyway, a couple other things. A few of my hinge pins did not fit properly in the arms, so my arms were not free. I had to do some sanding, actually. I couldn't just polish them, but I had to sand with 800 grit. I chucked it up in my drill, sanded it a little bit, and then went to 1,000, and then polished it with some mother's polish and kind of all nice and shiny and smooth again. And then the arms moved freely. But prior to that, the arms did not move freely. So, there's trade-offs. I know it's very hard to get plastics to mold at certain tolerances. I mean, the only way to really do that is to do a secondary operation that you machine the parts out of instead of molding them. But still, it's one of those things that, it takes time. It probably took me an extra, 15, 20 minutes to go through all the hinge pins and stuff and sand and repolish and everything to get the fit appropriately. And of course, then there's a lot of bolting and unbolting of parts trying to see how the arms fit. And it just, it's something that takes time. It's kind of annoying, but what are you going to do? I'd rather have it be tight than loose. You can fix tight. It's a little harder to fix loose. So anyway, shock mounting. This is something that's pretty minor, honestly. It's not that big of a deal. It's annoying to me, but not that big of a deal. We'll see if I can bring the car up into the camera here, and so you can see how the, let's see, what's the best way to get this in here. There we go, maybe like that. But this front ball has basically an Allen head in it, and on the back side here, I don't know if you can see or not, but you basically have a screw on the back side. So in order to get the shock off, you actually have to use 2 Allen wrenches. Not the end of the world, like I said, but a lot of times I like to have, have my car in one hand and need to be taking the shocks off in the other hand or whatever. So it would just be nice to do it kind of like some of the off-road stuff where you have a little I don't know what you want to call it, T-style shock mount with a nut on it. So you mount the T to the shock tower, and then you just have one single nut you have to pull on and off to get the shock off. Again, not the end of the world, but something that I don't necessarily like myself. Anyway, on to the next thing. The kit includes plastic molded ball stud spacers. It's not the end of the world, but as most people are aware, machined parts, particularly machined metals like aluminum, are going to be much, much more accurate than a molded plastic. The plastic's going to have some give. As you tighten the ball stud down, it's going to kind of compress slightly. Machined aluminum is going to be very, very accurate. So all the ball studs mount on those plastic shims. I do have some aluminum ones coming just because I don't like that. But you know, that is something that's the way the kit comes out of the box. I would have preferred for the kit price to have aluminum ones in there because the car is pretty expensive. A lot of my off-road cars that I've been running, like the TLR cars, they come with aluminum spacers, and I think most kits there are $350, $400 maybe for the four-wheel. I can't remember off my hand or off the top of my head, but regardless, you know, they come with aluminum ball stud spacers, and it's not nearly as important on an off-road car as it is on an on-road car. Just my opinion, but anyway. Front bumper. I have some notes over here that I'm kind of going off of, but front bumper is, I mean, it's, you know, it's a nice little bumper. It's light. You know, nothing too fancy, but it is a very soft bumper. So for guys that run at a track with a lot of pipes or whatever, you got to try to avoid. You know, you're maybe not a good driver. You're probably going to want to upgrade the bumper to something a little stiffer. So thankfully, the track that I run at has got kind of like a garden hose style outline, and the only walls or boards are on the absolute outside most part of the track. So most of the time, I'm not going to be hitting walls. There's not going to be a whole lot of damage to the car unless I smack an outside wall pretty fast. But at that point, I pretty much deserve to break the car. Anyway, so that is a downside. I did, after I saw this, I did purchase the hard bumper. And this is like stupid hard. It's also really thick. So this, in my opinion, is too hard. The bumper that comes on the car is too soft. It'd be nice to have kind of a middle ground or something in there, you know. But hey, you know what? That's what the kit comes with. So moving on. Motor mount. This is one of those things that is both good and bad for me. Motor mount's very lightweight, which is great, especially for stock guys. Let's see if I can get show you guys here. Pull the battery out. Motor mount is very lightweight and is a very cool tweakless design, but the thing that I don't like about it is that it is only mounted basically off two screws off the bottom of the motor there. I don't know if you can see that in there, but you basically only have those two screws. There's not a screw on the opposite side of the motor. It's just those two right just under the belt there. But so the bad thing with that, at least in my mind, is the motor can flex pretty easily. Not the end of the world, but the motor does have some movement to it. Obviously, whenever it moves, it changes the gear mesh. So it could cause some binding, depending on how the chassis flexes and how the motor flexes and whatnot. You know, we'll see. I haven't run the car yet, so I'm not going to, you know, make judgments on how the car performs until I've run the car. But that is something that I don't necessarily like, but at the same time I do like because the tweakless design is pretty cool. Anyway, one last thing I have noted on here as far as cons. This is my my note sheet here. I've got a ton of stuff on here, but the biggest complaint that I have overall is the price of the kit. You look at other cars in the market, like the Yokomo BD7, I think it's around $450, $420. Let's see here, yeah, $400 from A-Main is the Yokomo BD7. The VBC Wildfire is $400. Serpent ERYX is $450. Associated TC 6.2 is $420. So when you compare that to a car that is $520 or $530, I can't remember off the top of my head, but you know, basically the average car is kind of $180 cheaper than the X-Ray. You know, I kind of expect the car to be, you know, considerably better for a considerably higher price. But anyway, like I said, it's still a pretty good car, at least so far in my experience building the car. Everything seems pretty good. One other thing that I did forget to mention, that I didn't actually have in my notes, but the shock pistons the kit includes are molded shock pistons. They are not machined. That kind of stinks for me. All my off-road stuff is machined. Most every kit that I know of nowadays comes with machined pistons in the off-road world. If they don't, they should be. But the kit comes with molded pistons. Again, not the end of the world. You can kind of sand the mold marks and stuff off of them, but they're just not nearly as accurate as machined pistons. On to the good stuff. Stuff that I like about it. A lot of people don't like the X-ray orange on the car. I really like the orange color. The anodizing looks to be very deep, very good quality anodizing. I think that's just awesome. I don't think that this will scratch or come off very easily, so anodizing, very good quality. The ARS suspension system is something else that I thought was cool. It's a pretty unique feature in general. You know, I mentioned it kind of as a negative earlier because, at least in my mind, it makes the price of the kit go up. I don't like the price of the kit being higher, but that said, the ARS is pretty cool. It's cool that they include it for you to use as an option. But at the same time, I would have rather seen more useful stuff as options come with the car, like aluminum ball stud spacers, optional shock springs. I mean, you know, I don't know a single racer anymore that races with just the kit's shock springs. I mean, that would be nice to have the kit include a couple sets of, you know, maybe like, I think what's on the car is 2.5s, you know, do 2.4s and 2.6s. I think that would be awesome. I'd rather have that than the ARS. But regardless, the ARS is pretty cool that it's included. Motor mount design, I think, is pretty cool. Like I said, I don't like that it flexes like it does. And then it's mounted on with 2 screws on the one side. But it is a very cool tweakless design. Let me see if I can bring this back in here so I can show you guys a little bit. Try to pull the belt out of the way. But basically what you have is you have 2 separate pieces. So you have this part here that mounts to the chassis with 5 screws, excuse me. So you basically get, you can actually tune the, you know, how much the motor mount flexes, which I guess according to X-Ray in the manual says you can change for you know, different traction conditions and whatnot. This screw here is actually a button head screw, and they tell you not to tighten the lock nut fully down, so that is not even clamped down on there. That is actually loose. And if you actually see there, the button head screw in the bottom of the chassis there, which is pretty cool. And then there's one single screw that bolts to the back side of this upper part here. Pretty cool little unique design. I think it looks pretty cool. Pretty lightweight, should work pretty well. We'll see how much it flexes whenever I get out there on the track, but in general, I think it's a pretty cool design. Okay, so for whatever reason, my camera just decided to stop recording. Anyway, what I was saying was that one of the things I thought was pretty cool from you know, a kit builder's perspective is that X-Ray includes a lot of extra screws in the kit. If you look at my unboxing video, you'll see kind of, I think it's towards the end, if I remember correctly, I pull out this little baggie. It's just some miscellaneous screws, and not really sure what it is. But that baggie is actually just extra screws, extra E-clips, extra set screws for different things. So that's pretty cool. I don't know how many times I've sent a E-clip flying across the room and nowhere to be found, or set screw or whatever for that matter. So it's nice to have those couple extra screws in there. Even if you don't end up using them immediately, you will end up using them more than likely later on as you run the car and kind of lose pieces here, there, or whatever. So that's pretty cool. So that was awesome. Good job, X-Ray, on that. The carbon quality. This is something that I'm fairly familiar with. I do a lot of airplane and helicopter flying models, and especially with helicopters, carbon is a big part of the heli, and that is very much important to how the heli flies, how it withstands crashes. And I've seen a lot of manufacturers out there have, you know, carbon fiber that's kind of crappy quality carbon. Not that every single car kit manufacturer out there that does carbon chassis and whatnot doesn't do good quality, but with my previous car, I had a VBC Wildfire. I've had some other miscellaneous stuff here and there. I had a CRC XTI 12 scale, but this the carbon quality on this kit is actually a very high quality carbon, very well done. All the machine marks and machining and everything done to the chassis is perfect. I looked for a blemish. The only blemish that I could find was issues from the way the kit was packaged, and that all that came off. So not a big deal there, but carbon quality is absolutely stellar in this car. So something that, you know, most people may not pay attention to, but like I said, just super good quality carbon. Next thing that I have noted here is the manual. I don't want to go out and say that it is the best manual I've ever seen in my life, but it is by far one of the best in the RC industry. If you look at my unboxing, I kind of go through a little bit of the manual there and show you, but awesome manual. Gives you a parts explosion before you do the steps, so you can kind of see how things go together. Then it guides you through the steps and what screws and everything that is listed. Gives you optional options. Also has you know, tuning tips along the way. So in the case of like the motor mount, it tells you to leave, you know, what screws to leave out to help flex. So pretty cool, pretty awesome manual. I have noted down here aluminum wheel hexes. Most of the on-road kits nowadays have aluminum wheel hexes. Some of the off-road kit manufacturers are starting to go to aluminum wheel hexes, but that's something that's kind of becoming standard, but X-Ray's been doing for a while. So anyway, good job there. Keep doing that. That's awesome. And lastly, as far as good things about this car, I think this is one of my favorite things. It's dumb, but I think this is one of my favorite things about this car, and that is how the sway bars mount. It seems really, I don't know, really crazy that that I would say something like that. That's something that means so much. But if you take a look here, there is basically you have this little I don't know if I can get the camera to focus there. You have this little channel that's built into the, or this little loop that's built into the bulkhead here that holds the diff. And basically you insert a bearing over the sway bar, and that sits inside this little channel. There's a little lip on the inside of the channel, so the bearing won't fall through this way or this way, depending on which side it's on. But then you basically take this little, it's kind of like a lock collar, but it's modified in a way. Has a little notch and stuff, and you basically take this lock collar, slide it over it, and capture the bearing in there. So what you end up getting out of this is you have a sway bar that moves very freely because of the bearing, but at the same time doesn't have any slop in it whatsoever. There is no side-to-side play. See if I can do this where the camera can see, but there is no side-to-side play, no up and down play. Obviously I got the shock on it so you can't see it move, but just a genius way to mount the sway bars. A lot of people say it's finicky to install. I didn't believe that it was, but this is just a stupid easy way to mount a sway bar. Just super impressed with that from X-Ray. So that's pretty freaking awesome. Other kit manufacturers out there, please take note of that, copy it, whatever, make it your own. But that's an awesome way, easy way to mount sway bars. So there's no thinking. You don't have to worry about tightening a set screw too tight or too loose or whatever. Just freaking awesome. So anyway, I think that pretty much covers it. My bodies are supposed to be here today. Hopefully if they get here, I'll wash them out and get them painted and everything, hopefully this weekend. And afterwards, we'll be able to give it some running. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, want to know particulars about my car, what my setup is, anything like that, leave a question or anything in the comments. Shoot me a message, whatever. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it.